Yeah, that's a new notification from Zoom. It didn't used to always say that. It's throwing me off a little bit. All right, so I'm going to share my screen here. There we go. All right, so I'm following off the curriculum page. So I'm down on the section where it says, I guess, near topics covered. We're going to just go through our VS Code setup, and then we'll also go over the command line in VS Code. So if everyone can follow along, hope everyone has their VS Code set up and ready to go. So the first thing I'm going to do is going to go to my terminal. So this is an iTerm. I think everyone should hopefully have iTerm installed. I'm using Bash, which is just I guess a wrapper for my terminal. I think ZSH is the default. So some of you guys might be using that. Let me make this a little larger. So I'm just going to go through some basics on the command line. So hopefully everyone can follow along. If you guys have questions, please stop me and just ask questions and I'll try to answer them. I am not a command line expert, but just want to give a basic overview of how to work with it. So I'm just going to go over some basic commands that you can run and that will help you use the command line. So the first one I'm going to introduce is PWD. So let me actually, all right, PWD. So PWD stands for Print Working Directory, and this will, if I run that, it will show me my full path of where I'm located in my file system. So I'm currently in users, code platoon, code, Oscar, and challenges. These are directories I created. Code platoon is my username, so that's where that's coming from. You should see something similar. Obviously, instead of seeing code platoon, you should see your username for your computer. So again, PWD stands for Print Working Directory. So now I'm currently located in code/Oscar/challenges, but to navigate, we use the CD command. Does anyone know what CD stands for?
Change directory.
You got it. Yep. So all these are short forms. So again, the whole point of the command line, again, if you have a question, is to make things a lot quicker. It may seem slower, especially if you're new to it, but once you get all the commands down and kind of just work with it and practice with it, most of what you'll be doing is going to be way faster using the command line than using the file system. So normally, if I had, let me bring up my folder. All right, so if you just use like the Mac OS, you could navigate through all your files. Like, so I have users, code platoon, code, and Oscar. So this is where I'm located right now. So I have nothing in here, and that's the same path here. So these are both like showing the same directory, but I can do things through here. So let's say I create a new folder through my OS, I guess through my Finder. I can create a new folder and call this Hello Monday. So I created a folder here. So now I can actually get into that folder. So CD, as mentioned, stands for change directory. So now in my challenges folder, I should have a Hello Monday folder. So let me actually back up and introduce a new command. Again, if I'm going too quickly, please stop me. So there's a command called ls, which stands for list directory. If I hit enter, it's going to show me everything that's in that folder. So notice I see Hello Monday, which is a shade of cyan or blue. That means it's a folder. So if I want to get into that folder, that's where I'll use the cd command and then type in the folder name. So I'll type in Hello Monday. And now notice that my path is updated. So now I'm actually in that Hello Monday folder. Now, if I do an ls in this folder, again, this is listing the contents of the current directory. Notice that there's nothing printed. That's because there's nothing in my folder here. It's empty directory. So if I want to add something, I could create a new file. So let's do that through our OS. Let's do, how do I actually create a new file? All right, let's ignore that then. But yeah, I could create a new directory from my terminal also. So if I cd, another way to navigate through your terminal, change directory, if you do a single dot means your current directory. If you do a double dot, that means your parent directory. So if I actually do cd and then type double dots, that's actually going to take me back up one level. So if I hit enter, notice that I'm back to my challenges folder. I'm no longer in the Hello Monday folder. All right. So again, cd will let you navigate into directories, but also out of directories if you use the double dots. to get to the parent folder. All right, so let's say I want to make a new directory. I did that through my Finder window, but if I want to do that through my terminal, and again, this is something that's much quicker the better you get at it, I could use the make dir command. So this stands for make directory, and then I give a new folder name. So let's call it Hello Tuesday. So if I hit enter, it's going to create a folder called Hello Tuesday. All right, so notice it created it right here. It's in my challenges folder. I could also verify that by doing the ls command, and this will list all the contents here. So notice I have Hello Monday, Hello Tuesday. Any questions so far?
Just curious, did you say what LS stands for?
Sorry, I couldn't quite hear you. What was the question?
Just curious, did you say what LS stands for?
Oh, yeah. So ls stands for list directory. So ls just stands for list. Basically, we'll list all the contents of a directory. Good question. So some other things that you can do with commands is certain commands have certain options you could add on to them. So I'm actually going to create, let's see, let's create. So on Macs, if you use a period before a file name, that's actually a hidden file. So I named my hidden file. But in this case, if I do an ls, notice that I don't see that file listed here. That's because, again, this dot makes it a hidden file. Well, let's say I did want to see it listed. So when I do my ls command, you could pass it some options. One option is -a. That -a means show me everything, or actually stands for all, I believe. So this will actually show you hidden files also. So let's say I hit enter there. Notice I get a whole bunch of extra items here that I didn't see before. So a couple of those items are the dot and the double dots. Again, those are just, I guess, directories. The dot is the current directory. Double dot is the parent directory. Notice I have this dot hidden file here. That's the file I created. So now it's shown because I used the -a. Again, the -a will show you everything in there. All right, so we're just going over some basic commands. So we went over print working directory. We went over listing the contents. Again, cd lets you navigate. So if I wanted to go up one level again, I'll do cd ... Let's say I wanted to jump all the way to my code folder. I could actually jump up 2 levels. I'll do ... / and then do a ... again. So this is basically going to the parent directory and getting the parent of the parent directory. So if I hit enter now, I should result in my location should be the code folder. So let me hit enter, and notice I jumped up 2 levels because I did that twice. You do that also going, like, I guess, downward. So if I did change directory and I want to go to Oscar and then challenges, and let's say I want to go into my Hello Tuesday folder. So I'm going down 3 levels. I'm just typing all the folders along the way. Hit enter, and there you go. I'm in that folder that I want it to be in. Okay. So those are some basic commands for navigation. We talked about, again, make directory. You can make multiple directories. So this is one of the many cases where your command line will be faster. So if I want to make like a bunch of directories, let's say I want to call it A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. I'm creating 7 folders here, and that's just basically typing this all out. And then I do an ls. Notice all these folders got created. That's going to be much faster than if I went through my Finder and typed in like new folder, got to rename it, click A. I think I do that for, sorry, I'm in my base folder. Yeah, so if I were in here and I want to create these folders, obviously it's going to take a while, right? I created one, created another one. So it's just kind of slower, kind of, yeah, the UI is friendlier to use, but not always the best option. So that's where the command line, again, can be your friend. What else? So let's say I want to remove a directory. So make mkdir stands for make directory. That creates directories. Again, here I created 7 different directories, each with a letter of the alphabet as its name. let's say I want to remove one of these directories. I could do rm dr, and let's remove a directory. Let's remove E. If I don't want directory E, and let's say I don't want directory G. So I'm going to do rm dir and list directories I want to remove. Let's hit enter. And then let's take a look. So it's investigate. I'm going to type ls. And notice that the E directory was deleted and the G directory is deleted. The one thing is for using rm dir or remove directory, you can only use that to remove empty directories. As in, if any of these folders had contents in it, then rm dir will fail. So let's try actually doing that. I'm going to go into my A folder. I'm going to create a file. So I haven't gone over this touch command, but touch is the way you create new files. So I'm just going to call it, let's say, a.txt. So I'm creating a text file. So notice that I have a.txt created here. I'm going to jump up one level. And now I'm going to try to remove that directory. So I'm going to do rm dir, and then let's remove the folder of A. So if I go back to this folder, notice I have this a.txt inside this folder of A. So if I try to remove this, notice I get an error. It says A is not an empty directory. So again, you can only use the rm dir or remove directory command for empty directories. Okay, so that's just some protection there. So, all right, that's good to know about. So I might want to investigate what I'm actually deleting. So I could dive into that folder, check out what I'm deleting. Let's say I already know that I don't want the A folder and whatever's in that directory. I can remove stuff without having this error. But to do that, I'll use the rm command, not the rm dir. So rm stands for remove. And then you want to use another flag. So when I say flag, that just means an option that is provided with that command. So the R flag, that R stands for recursive. So this will basically delete everything in the folder that I provide and recursively do it for everything that's in there. So if I do this, it's actually going to go into my A folder, delete everything in there, and then delete the A folder after that. But this is actually going to warn me. So if I hit enter, actually, I guess it didn't warn me. Let's see, let's try that again. All right, let me try to run that again. All right, that's not what I expected, but all right. So again, this -r is just recursive. So everything in that A folder will be deleted and that A folder removed. So if I don't do that, if I try doing, let's see, let's do make dir again. And go into that directory. Let's create a file. Let's create a folder. All right, so I have a text file and a folder I created. Let's jump back out. Let's just do an rm. Hey. All right, so doing rm just on directory, you'll get some message saying, hey, it's a directory. To actually delete it, you need that -r to recursively go through this folder and delete everything in it. All right, so one big note, if you're doing this, make sure you know what folder you're deleting. You could theoretically delete everything off your computer if you're not careful with this command. So again, just fair warning, you can really mess up your computer if you do not properly use this command. So again, you should know exactly what folder you're deleting. If you delete like your root level, then that's just going to wipe everything off your computer. So just don't, make sure you're not like at the very base level of your file system and then run this command, because this will again delete everything off your computer and wipe it completely. So you'll have to reinstall your operating system and everything else that was on your machine. All right, so again, rm can be used to remove files. So if I wanted to go into my folder here, do an ls. Notice I have a text file, so let's remove that text file. I'm going to do rm and give my text file name. So this is saying remove a.txt. So I'm going to hit enter. And one thing that you may be noticing here is that the command line doesn't really give you like success notifications. Like this actually successfully removed my text file, but I didn't get any prompt or message saying, hey, you successfully removed it. So that's something you just gotta get used to with the command line. If you don't see a message, that usually is a good thing. I know that's not kind of what we expect as users, but again, this is, I see no error message here. So this, for the most part, means this was successful. So if I actually do an ls again, notice that my a.txt has been removed because I did a remove command. Any questions so far? Want to make sure I'm not going too fast.
So I noticed that you were able to retrieve commands that you already typed. How do you do that?
Great question. I'm glad you brought that up because I definitely skipped over that. So yeah, another shortcut is if you use the up arrow and the down arrows in your terminal, they'll cycle through all your recent commands. So if I hit up arrow once, notice I get my ls command. If I do that again, I'll get the second to last command and so forth. So if you just keep hitting up, it keeps a history of all the commands you ran. So that's definitely a good shortcut to know. And if you hit down, it starts going back down to the ones you cycle through. So yep, great question. I'm glad you asked that because I totally forgot to mention that. Another handy command that's pretty easy to use is the clear command. I've actually used it a couple times. Clear, which is basically give you extra space in your terminal. So if I hit clear, it's going to wipe out all the lines, but they're still there. So if I actually want to see them, I could scroll up and see everything I've typed so far in this terminal. But clear just gives you like all the space that you want for your window. So if you just don't want to see the past commands, clear will wipe out the screen, but it still keeps everything there if you want to see it or access it. All right, so we talked about, again, print working directory, change directory, make directory, remove directory, and remove. Again, big note on remove, make sure if you use remove-r, that's going to recursively remove everything in the folder that you give it. So if that folder happens to be your root level, then everything off your machine will get wiped. So don't do that. And then we talked about ls, which is again listing your directory contents. Let's talk about a couple other ones. So let's talk about touch. So that's something I used before. Touch actually is updating your file timestamps, which sounds kind of weird, but it's mostly used to create a new placeholder file. So you can create a file in whatever folder you're in. So I'm in my hello Tuesday/a. So I could do touch.atxt, which I just deleted, and that creates a new file. I could do multiple files. So if I want to do like b.txt and let's do c.html, this will create multiple files at once. So again, same thing, just much faster to do that through your terminal than go through your Finder. Again, you could use your Finder, nothing wrong with it, but it's just more efficient to do everything through your terminal. Other reasons is because we run Git commands through our terminal. We run our programs like Python files or using Node through a command window anyway. So it's good to kind of just do everything in your command window rather than kind of cycle back and forth between your Finder window and then your terminal. Okay, so again, touch creates new items. So let's create one more, d dot, I don't know what this can be. Let's say we want to actually open a file. So there's a command called open, pretty simple enough. It's self-explanatory, it'll open a file for you. So if I do a.txt, notice it opens a text edit. So there's default applications for each file types. So this txt maps over to text edit. I'm pretty sure that's configurable. I actually don't know how to change that. I am not a Mac guru, but I'm pretty sure it's easy to Google and figure out how to change those defaults. But yeah, I could just type whatever I want and save it. All right, so again, open, we'll just use the default application to open it. If I do an HTML, I'm pretty sure that'll open up a Chrome window. So I have that. This is a blank, sorry, that's off screen. It opened up a Chrome window. Again, there's nothing in here because my HTML file has nothing in it, but we'll eventually learn how to write HTML documents so that we could have interesting content here. But for now, this is a blank file opened up in Chrome. All right, so that's the open command. Again, pretty straightforward. Hopefully you guys are cool with that.
So what's the difference between the make directory and then the touch?
So make directory will create a folder for you. Touch creates a file for you.
Okay.
So yeah, again, if I did something like touch, and let's say I want to do, I am trying to create a folder. So if I try to do this, this is going to create a new file called I am trying to create a folder with no file extension. So just leaving out the extension doesn't mean you're creating a folder. So if I do this, versus if I do make directory, I am actually creating a folder. All right, so I did touch, and then this, and then make dir. So if I do an ls, notice that I am actually creating a folder is highlighted in cyan. Hopefully you guys can see these colors. I apologize if it's not super clear. Let me make it brighter. Sorry. All right, so this is like a shade of cyan, or I guess probably it is cyan. So that's a folder, versus I am trying to create a folder is a shade of gray, which means it's a file in this folder. So again, yep. So just to answer that question again, touch will create a new file for you. Make dir will create a new folder for you. Great question there, though. Okay, let's do a couple more commands, and that'll kind of wrap up our basic terminal introduction. So as with most file management applications, you can move files and copy files. So CP stands for copy. So let's say I want to copy my a.txt to a new file. I could do a.txt. Let's copy that to a_copy.txt. All right, so if I do an ls, notice I created that file. Let's open that up. So I'm going to do open a_copy.txt. And notice it still has my contents here. It's a little small, I apologize. But I wrote hello world in my original file, and I copied that file. And as I would expect, that should be my copy file. So again, copying, I'm sure we're all mostly familiar with that. You'd also move files. So moving is basically relocating a file. So let's say I want to move, my a_copy to my Hello Monday folder. Because right now I'm in my Hello Tuesday folder. Let's say I want to move it to my Hello Monday. So I'm going to use the mv command. Again, mv stands for move. And I'm going to select the file I want to move. So I'm going to do or not select it, but type it in, a_copy.txt. And let's say I want to move it to my Hello Monday. So I actually need to navigate to that folder here. So to do that, I want to go to my parent folder, because my parent folder is Hello Tuesday. So I'm going to go up another level. And so doing this twice means I'm going to be in my challenges folder, which is where my Hello Monday folder is located. I'm going to do a slash and do Hello Monday. If I can spell that correctly, Monday. And then now that, so basically I'm taking the file that's here and I want to relocate it to my Hello Monday folder. So I'm going to give that a run. Let's see what happens. All right, so let's do an ls. Notice that my a_copy is no longer in my current folder because I moved it out of here. So I wouldn't expect it to be here. So again, copying is going to create a duplicate. Moving obviously relocates the actual file. It's not going to keep the original where it was. So let's actually, I could check in my Finder here. Notice that a copy got moved here. I could obviously verify that in my terminal. So there are some things that are slower in the terminal, I would admit. I feel like navigating through folders is probably much easier to do it through your Finder. But for the most part, everything else, like creating files, deleting files, it tends to be quicker through your terminal. So let me just do a quick clear here. You can use move to rename a file. So essentially, if I do an ls, let's say I want to rename my b.txt to something else. So if I do move, select my b.txt, I just give it a new file name. So let's just move it to renamed. I'm not really creative with names here right now. I'm going to call it renamed, not renamed, renamed_b.txt. All right, so do an ls. Notice that I actually have that renamed b.txt. My original is no longer there because I actually renamed it, as in I moved it to a new file called rename b.txt. Okay, so just review. Copy will actually create a duplicate. Move will actually relocate your file to a new folder or relocate to a new file, which means you renamed it. So that's how we can use those commands to manage your files. Any questions on the commands we went over? Again, we went over print working directory, change directory, make directory, remove file, touch, which creates files, ls, which lists contents of your directory, open, which opens a file, copy and move, which copy and move your files.
So I
I
have
got
another
a quick question. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, John.
Love to.
I noticed that because we have the I am trying to create a folder file and then I'm trying to create a folder directory, and some people don't want to type that much. Is there a way to autocomplete names of things without having
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay.
Great question. I was definitely going to get to it, but I'm glad you asked it. So yeah, so again, the better you get with your terminal, you just want to be efficient with everything you do. That's kind of why we use it as programmers. So yeah, I have this really long folder name. I don't want to type all that out. So you can use the tab key to actually autocomplete for you. And it's really handy. And once you get used to it, it just makes everything much quicker. So let's say I want to actually get into that folder. I could just do C change directory and type it all out, right? What is it? Actually, right? It's kind of cumbersome. It's long folder name. I probably should have named it better. But let's say I don't want to type it all out. What I need to do is give it the unique character. So in this case, I_am matches both of these files. So if I do I underscore and I'm going to hit tab right now. So you guys can't see my keyboard, but I'm going to hit tab. Notice it filled in underscore am and another underscore. The reason it didn't fully complete is because there's two possible candidates. I could be trying to get to this, or I could be trying to get to this. It doesn't know which one I'm trying to get to. So I need to specify further by typing A or a T, and then I could autocomplete to the full thing because there's nothing else that will conflict with that autofill. So I'm going to do type in a T, type in an A because that's my folder name. And then if I add tab now, it autofills it for me. So that is much quicker than me typing all these characters out. All right. So yep, great trick to know there. You can do that again with multiple folders. Let me actually hop back a couple folders. All right, so now in my code folder, let's say I want to get back to this folder. I could type that all in one line, but I could use that tab key. So I'm going to do CD O and just hit tab, then do CH tab, HE. I guess in this case I have hello Monday, hello Tuesday, so it's going to stop me. And then where do I want to get to? A/am. All right, so instead of typing all these characters out, which is probably like, I don't know, 30, 40 characters, I didn't quite count it. I only had to type maybe like 5 or 6 and hit tab, and I was easily able to get to that folder that I wanted. So again, if you have things that are named the same, like in this case, I have hello Tuesday, hello Monday, that's going to slow you down in the autocomplete. But for the most part, you can still get by if you just know your folder names or your target name. Great question, John. Does someone else have a question?
Yeah, I had a quick question. So for the make directory, you went A through G and boom, 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 all new folders. Are you able to do make directory and touch all on the same line, like make a directory and put a file in it all on the same line?
Yeah, so you can combine commands. That's another great question. I'm glad you asked that. So let's say I want to create a new directory. So let's go up one. What do I have here? So I have A, B. Let's create E again. So I'm going to do make dir. I'm going to create E. And then you can use the ampersand to combine commands. So if you want to just do everything in one line, you can totally do that. So this is going to create a directory first, and then I could do whatever else, assuming that directory got created. So I could do a touch, and then let's do e/e.txt. All right, so what this is going to do, it's going to do the first part, create a directory. Assuming that succeeds, it's going to create a file in the E folder and call the new file e.txt. So if I try that, all right, let's do an ls. Notice my E folder got created. If I dive into that folder, CE, notice that file got created. You could also do that again. Let's say I want to create a folder and switch into it. You could totally do that. So if I want to do, let's create a nested folder here. Let's call them E nested. And then I want to change into it. I could do CD E nested. And then let's say I want to also touch a file, as in create a file in there. So I'll call nested.txt. So here I'm doing 3 items. I'm creating a directory, I'm changing into that directory, and then creating a file in that local directory. Again, I don't know how to do this. In the previous case, I just created a file in that directory. So that was 2 commands, but you can change as many commands as you want to. So yep, notice
if a command fails, will it stop?
Great question. Let's actually try it out. So let's, how can we make it fail? Can we create a duplicate directory? Yeah, that's not what I wanted. So let's remove that directory. All right, so we're in E. Let's try creating another E nested directory. I'm curious what will happen. I'm actually not 100% sure. Make sure I type it correctly. Okay, notice I get a file exists, so it won't overwrite your existing folder. I'm pretty sure there are flags you can pass make there that will overwrite it automatically if you want to. Again, most of these commands have extra flags. You can Google them. I went over a couple of them like ls-a, which will list in files, rm-r, which recursively deletes everything in a folder. Again, there's a ton more flags or options that these commands take, so I'll leave that as a self-research project. Just kind of go over the main ones you will be using. So let's try doing that. So let's do a make dir e nested. So we know this is going to fail. And then let's try doing a touch. We'll create this in our local folder. So we'll do let's say new.txt. So this is going to create a new file in my current folder. But first, we're going to try to create a nested folder. So we know this is going to fail. So the question is, will this touch command still work? Because again, the current folder still exists, so we should be able to create it. But let's see what happens. So notice we get an error. The $50,000 or $64,000 question is, did we create new.txt? Notice, did not get created. So yeah, these are executed in order. So the first, they had to succeed for the next command to go on. So great question. Good to know that these will be executed in order. So I guess that kind of protects you in terms of if one thing fails, you probably don't want to do the rest of the items if you were chaining them. Okay. One other not random, but I don't know, I've never really used it. There's an echo command. This simply will repeat whatever you type in there. So if I do echo hello Oscar, that just prints it out here. But we could do something a little more useful. And this, again, this is just another operator we could use in our terminal. Let me clear my terminal so we get more space here. We could do echo, and then let's just do hello Oscar. But instead of printing this out to a terminal, we could print out to a file. So I'm using this caret character. I just kind of mentally view this as feeding whatever file the value of this output. So if I do, let's create a new file. Let's call it output.txt. So instead of printing this out to the console, it's going to take whatever the output would be from this value, and then it's going to feed it as an input to this file. So let's try doing that. And notice that I got nothing in my terminal because that output was transferred to this file. So let's do ls. Notice that it created a file for me. I didn't manually create this output.txt. Let me know if my screen is too small. I apologize if I'm not making it large enough. But if I open up outputs.txt, notice I have hello Oscar in there because hello Oscar, sorry, all my default sizes are small. Hello Oscar was the output of my first command. All right, so again, the echo command, I've never really used it, but you can use this operator, the caret, to take the output of one execution and put it as an input to the next execution. So in this case, it's just creating a file for me and putting the contents of my echo into there. Courtney, I see you have a question.
Yeah, so I'm just making sure I understand. So if you don't have a file, it will create the file and feed it into it. And if the file already exists, it will just feed hello Oscar into it.
Yep.
It'll do either or.
Yep, you got it.
All right, thank you.
Great question. So if you wanted to, feed something else in there, I believe it's going to overwrite it. It's not going to append. So if I do new message here, if I do this, it's pretty sure it's going to overwrite this. I'm not. Let's give that a try. All right. So this close that. All right. So notice that my message again it overwrote my content. It did not append. Any questions?
Can you use regular expressions in the terminal? Because let's say you wanted to create 26 folders and you didn't want to do make directory A space B all the way to Z. And
that is an excellent question. I actually don't know the answer, so I think it's worth a Google. So I'm going to do it with Google. Let's see, regex in terminal. This seems maybe what we want. I'm doing a quick scan. I don't know, this page. I don't know, maybe I'll open it to the audience. Does anyone in the audience know regular expressions in terminal? I'm not familiar with this topic. So you can do it for searching. Looks like when you use grep is another command you can use. We didn't go over that, but that actually searches the contents of your file. You use regular expressions with that, but not sure. Let's see. All right, looks like you could use it like this. Let's actually try it then. Okay, echo. I don't know, I'll try it. So let's try doing a make dir, I think that had A through Z. I've never done this before. Okay, boom, there you go. So I guess the answer is yes. That is news to me. So John, I'm glad you asked that question. I would say read up documentation on that because I quickly just scanned the page and copied it. I didn't really figure out all the details, but it looks like this is a good resource, guru99.com, Linux regular expressions. I'll actually post that in our channel in case anyone's curious. But yeah, so again, I know a lot of people may not be familiar with regular expressions. We will have a day of that probably in week 3, so it's a little ways out. Regular expressions are really useful, like outside of a coding context. They're good for like even if you work in a Word document and want to do a replace, like a complicated replace. Regular expressions can be really handy there. So don't worry if you don't understand regular expressions at this point. But if you are curious, let me post that in our Slack channel for anyone that is comfortable with regular expressions. Let's post that in Oscars. But yeah, great suggestion there. So again, the command line has a lot to it. Obviously, we're only going at like a base level to make sure everyone is comfortable with using it for our needs. Again, you should be able to create files, navigate, move files. What else do we do? List contents, like just basic operations. Hopefully you guys all will get familiar with it if you're not already. So just practice that. You're gonna need a lot of practice with it as we're doing our coding challenges. So don't worry if you're still kind of iffy on it or like, I haven't memorized the commands, what do I do? It'll become second nature to you the more and more you do it. Any other questions before we proceed? Okay, I will take that as everyone is good. All right, let's take a quick break. So after a break, we're going to go over VS Code. So again, hopefully everyone has VS Code installed. We're just going to be going through the page I had up that I didn't actually get to. But we're going to go applying some settings. This shouldn't take too long. Applying some extensions. Again, these installations are really quick. And then we'll actually get into like a quick demo of VS Code, kind of how you use it to debug and run files. All right, so let's take a quick break. I have 1:42 on my end, so let's take an 8-minute break. Please be back by 1:50 Central Time, and then we'll continue on with learning about VS Code. Recording. All right, that notification always throws me off. All right, so I'm just gonna be going again through our curriculum page down where we're on topics covered. We're gonna be just applying these settings, installing some extensions, and then we'll run through a demo. Down here, there's a Unix command line settings file. Actually, I'm going to do that first. I think someone had a question about that in our Oxford questions chat. So we kind of go over that. This will probably be best Googled rather than me trying to parse where this is. But let's quickly go over that. So here's my command line, kind of large for my taste. All right. So a couple of things that I kind of left off that are worth going over when you're changing directories. So notice that my directory starts with a squiggle or a tilde. That is my home directory. So if I want to actually just do something in my home directory, I could do squiggle and then slash. And let's say I want to create a new folder. So let's call it, let's actually do make dir, let's say new folder. So this actually didn't create it locally. Notice it's not in here. Sorry, I have like too many folders here. It actually created it on my home directory. So if I actually go to my home directory again, shortcut is just using squiggle slash, and I do an ls here. Notice I created my new folder at my root level here. So that's what the tilde is used for. In my root level, if I do an ls-a, again, the -a will show me hidden files. Notice I have all these extra hidden files here. Half of them, I don't even know what they are. Like, I don't know what CF user text encoding is. It's there. I'm not going to delete it because it's probably useful for my OS. But the one I wanted to actually investigate is this .bash profile. So hopefully you guys have this file. If you're not, you can create it. So again, to create it, you do a touch.bash profile. But I already have one that exists. So I'm actually going to edit that. So to edit that, I'm going to type in code.bash profile. Code is a shortcut for VSCode. So this is actually going to open my bash profile in a VSCode window. So that's going to be our intro, I guess, to VSCode. I'm going to hit enter. It should bring up a new window. Again, apparently I had a VSCode open, so let's ignore that. Let me delete what I had before. Okay, so I'm in my VSCode right now, and this is my bash profile. So I have a bunch of stuff in here. At the top, I have these path variables. Hopefully you guys were able to add these. So this is basically adding locations where the OS will search for various applications. So I guess I can get rid of this one. I have one for Python. So this is where it's going to look for Python installation. I'm not sure where all this stuff's doing, but you should hopefully have something that looks like this in your bash profile. This part lets you add Git specific branch information to your output. So we haven't gotten too much into Git, but we'll talk about more about that, I guess, tomorrow. So let's kind of ignore that. But if you want to customize the look of your terminal, this is what's being done here. So these exports is actually, excuse me, controlling how my terminal looks. So if I bring up a terminal, actually I could just look at my bash profile. Notice I have these colors. Mine's like a bright green. I have a timestamp here. I have a $sign and a caret or angle bracket, what do you want to call it? That's something I configured. You can kind of configure it to look however you want to. So if I kind of try to parse this, again, this, where is it? I think this 0 semicolon 32 is a bright green. So if I change that to like 3, I guess I have this here. Again, I'm not even sure what these are. I looked these up, so I'm not going to try to pretend I know what all these characters do. You can look up how to format your bash terminal or just your terminal. And it'll give you like these codes. So like this opens some code and specifies some color. I don't want to move those around. \t is just a tab. Or sorry, that's time. So notice I have square brackets. \t gives me the time. So that's the format for giving me a timestamp here. So anytime I run a command, it'll show me the timestamp there. I think that was someone's question. So again, you just want to do export ps1 equals, and then basically whatever you want your prompt to look like. So in this case, I have a timestamp. W, I think, is working directory. Don't quote me on that. I have my Git branch. So if I were working in a Git branch, it would display it. In this current case, I don't have Git branch, so it doesn't show it. What else can I? And then I have this $caret. Again, you could have whatever you want here. Format it to your liking, mess around with it, but just make sure it's not too verbose or too difficult to parse visually. Again, there's some character code going on here. I don't have this memorized. I looked it up, so you guys can kind of control your colors that way. I don't quite remember what all these colors are, but yeah, you can definitely format it. It's not the easiest thing to do, so it's not super user-friendly in my opinion, but it is possible to customize your terminal. That's why my terminal looks a little different. If you remember Tom's terminal from earlier, looked a little different. He configured it to the way he likes it. I configured mine to the way I like it. So if you guys do kind of want to do that and kind of get stuck, we could do that one-on-one after we finish lecture time. But one other thing I wanted to point out, because that's something I've set up, is you can set a default directory so that whenever you open a terminal, I'm going to actually open a new window here. So let's go to new window. Notice that mine always opens up to my code/Oscar/challenges. That's because I specify that in my preferences. So if you go to iterm2 and then go to, where is it? Preferences. In here, you should pull up a preferences window like this. If you're using bash, go to profile, and then in profile I have directory selected, and I specify the exact path that I want to be default for any window I open up. The reason I've defaulted it to here is because when I do all my challenges, they're all going to go in this folder. So it's good to have that organization. So it made sense for me to have this as my default path. since I'm probably gonna be working on this folder the most for my challenges. All right, so again, you want to go to iTerm Preferences, go to the Profiles tab. In there, you should see something like this. You want to select Working Directory, select a directory. So home directory would just be your home directory. But I want a specific one. You could also, I guess, reuse the previous session. So if you just like close the session and wanted to retain what it was on, you would use that. But again, you can configure that however you like to. This is what I've done for my profile. Okay. Let's clear this. Actually, I want to close this in a new window. Okay, so I have my VS Code open here. Here it is. This is my bash profile. I didn't make any changes, so nothing too interesting going on here. But hopefully your profile should look something similar to this. Make sure you have your exports. Those are important. Your configurations here are not as important, but good to have. Okay, let me actually close my VS Code here. All right, so I'm going to actually open up my VS Code. And so again, the way to do that is using the code command. So I'm going to do, let's see, ls. I have challenges. Let's go up a level. Sorry, I'm just moving some stuff around here. So let's get to lectures. And then I want to open up a new coding window here. Actually, let's get in the sandbox. So cd sandbox. I'm going to do code. And then when I do code dot, it's going to open up my current working directory as my workspace for VS Code. And we'll talk about why you need a workspace, but let's actually talk about that now. So I'm going to open, I'm not actually going to run this command. Let me delete this, not to confuse anybody. I'm going to open up a new VS Code from my second monitor, so you guys didn't see that. But I opened up a new VS Code. So this is a VS Code. It's got an untitled file. But notice I have no folder open. So if I actually want to like save this file, I can't really save that or rename it or do anything exciting with it. So if I right or control click on it, I can't rename it. The reason is because I'm not in a workspace. You gotta tell VS Code which folder you're working in so that it could actually use that as its workspace. So if I go to open folder, I can just navigate to where I want to work. So I could go to code, Oscar, lectures, and sandbox. So now that I have a workspace specified, I could create a new file here and work out of this folder. So VS Code is kind of particular about that. May not be the most intuitive, but if you just open up a VS Code and don't specify a working workspace, you're going to get some weird issues that you might not expect. Like you won't be able to, again, rename a file or move files around. So let me close this, quit Visual Studio. The common way, again, through our command line is just typing code. If I do this period, again, this period means current working directory. So that's going to open my sandbox folder as my current working directory. So the same thing that I just did moments ago, but that's just, this is through the command line. So now I do this. Notice that sandbox is my current working directory. And now I can kind of create my files or projects in this folder. All right, so this is VS Code. There's a lot to it. So VS Code is very flexible, has a lot to offer. We're going to just be going through the basics, but hopefully everyone's comfortable enough with it after we get through our tutorial here. Let's go back to my webpage. So first thing I'm going to do is set my settings. So I'm basically just going to copy what we have on our page, and I want everyone to be following along. So if I'm going too fast, please tell me. But everyone should have VS Code open, and we're going to be adding these settings. So I'm just going to copy this. Again, do a Command C, copy this from our curriculum page. And then I'm going to apply that to my VS Code. So there's two ways to do it. You could do it through the menu, go into Code, Preferences, Settings. But again, using shortcuts is that much faster if I do a Command-Shift-P and then type Preferences here. So notice I already had my settings in here, so apologies, it's not a full demo. But again, I did Command-Shift-P, and this is my command palette. And I typed in Preferences and then open Settings, JSON. And this lets me control what settings I want through a JSON format. So my settings are a little different. I have font size 18 to make sure my screen is readable when I'm sharing it. But basically, you want to take these settings and copy those in. I would say try not modifying these too much because we want to have the same settings between all of us, just so that when you're working with someone else's I guess VSCode that it looks pretty much similar to yours. All right, so this mostly just specifies, I have font size, some other things. One thing that I've gotten used to, I was kind of against it initially. Well, there's a autosave on focus change. So this just has it. So when I have a file open and I switch away from it, it's going to autosave it. I don't have to constantly hit Command S to save it. And that may seem kind of annoying at first, but it's good just when you're working with multiple files. You just don't have to constantly keep saving and saving and saving. When you switch between tabs, it'll just autosave for you, and it's kind of it makes things a lot easier in the long run. All right, so these are my settings. Once you have them, you want to save them and then close that, and that'll be your settings for all of your VS Code instances. Any questions on applying these settings? I trust everyone's following along.
Not so much a question as a comment that I'm not completely installed here, so I'm falling behind.
Okay. Sure, we could, let's wait a moment. Hopefully the installation shouldn't take too long. Is there anything that's going wrong, or is it just you're installing it right now?
I've got VS Code, but I think there's path things and issues that are not right.
Okay. All right, we could try to quickly fix that, or if not, we'll take it offline. What's not quite right about it?
Well, when I type code in a directory, it doesn't open VS Code.
Okay, it might just not know that. Did you code space period?
I tried code space of file name.
Okay, yeah, there might be something we need to configure with your system then. The code, let's say, which code? Can you type in which code and tell me what you see from there?
Code's not found for which or where.
Yeah, so it seems like your code, your keyword of code is not mapped correctly to VS Code. So that's something we'll try to fix offline. But yeah, hopefully, again, the steps we're going to go through aren't too cumbersome, so they should be easy to do on your own. But if you are able to have your VS Code open and follow along, it'd just be that much easier. So yeah, apologies if you run into any errors with VS Code. Kyle Gunter, I think you have a question.
Yeah, I'm also in kind of the same boat. I'm wondering if I should go ahead and just maybe circle back to this and probably watch the videos after, and because I think I might need to contact Apple support.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think you might be having a little more serious issue from what you described to us. But going back to Don, if you're able to open VS Code just through the OS, as in just going to your I guess application dock or wherever your VS Code is and just launching it manually, like outside of the command window, you should still be able to get to VS Code if it's installed.
Yeah, it's open.
Okay, cool. All right, so hopefully everyone was able to add their settings. Again, there's two ways to go about it. You can go to the code menu, so up here, code menu, preferences, and then settings, right? And then you can find settings. Usually you want to go to, so there's arrow here. Hopefully everyone's following along here. This will let you go to the JSON format. So basically everything you see here, this is like the user-friendly way where you could set, they have like fields and controls where you could set things. So notice I have font size 18. If I go to my JSON settings, this is all just kind of written out in a format where I can just edit multiple things much easier. So I have font size 18. That is the same as in the settings window. So it's just different views of the same data. So if you want to work with JSON settings, again, this is just easier to bulk change things versus settings. You got to go one by one and kind of change things. Either way you want to do it. JSON settings is what we provide on the curriculum page. So you can just copy and paste it, you'll be good to go. All right, so once you apply those settings, just save them and close that window.
I don't have settings open.
So did you go to your code menu? Go to preferences and settings.
Strangely, I'm not seeing that.
Okay.
The top bar.
Yeah, that is strange. Again, maybe one of the TAs will be able to help you, or we could definitely circle back after lecture. But yeah, I'm not sure what might be going on with your VS Code there. But apologies if you're not able to do that. Okay, so we have our settings. Next up, we're going to do extensions. So this is one of the things that makes VS Code really great, is that I have so many extensions that you can add on as you wish. So let's go through this list. So basically, on your left side of your VS Code, you should see these tabs. So the top tab is your file explorer. The second one is a search. So if you want to search in your open files, you can search this, and the search is pretty useful. You can also use regex here to search for more complicated items. Again, we haven't talked about regex, so if you don't know what regex is, totally fine. Then the third tab should be source control. This is something that VS Code, you can use it with Git. I don't. I use the command line, but this gives you the option for it if you set up everything correctly. But I'm just going to go over that. The fourth tab here is your debug pane, and we'll come back to this because debugging in VS Code is another great feature that I love using. The fifth one that looks like kind of ice cubes kind of coming together, that is your extensions tab. Here you can search for whatever extensions you're interested in. We have a recommended list. The only one I would say, I guess some of these are mandatory. You want to install Python. LiveShare we use a lot because we're in a remote world. So LiveShare is going to be a great way for you guys to collaborate over the code. Some of these are just more aesthetics, like Beautify and VS Code icons. You could definitely get away with not installing those, but again, I would highly recommend those. Basically, everything we have listed here, you should be able to search for it. So if I search for Sublime text, it should come up, and then you can click on it and hit install. In my case, I already have it installed, so I don't have these little install buttons. But if you don't have it installed, just click install. It should be like 2 seconds. It should be installed, so none of this should take a lot of time. But basically, just go through this list. So there's Beautify, VS Code icons. This one's kind of cool. Just make sure icons based on your file format, which may seem kind of pointless or kind of trivial, but once you have large projects with multiple file types, it's kind of nice just to have those icons rather than having to read the extensions constantly. Bracket pair colorizer, another useful one. We'll kind of see this in action shortly. IntelliSense, definitely want that. But yeah, kind of just go through this list, install them. Let's take let's say 2 or 3 minutes. Again, it shouldn't take too much time. You can kind of search, and if you find some other cool extensions, feel free to install them. It's kind of customizing VS Code to work the way you want it to. Yeah, so go through this list. Let's give it 3 minutes. If that's not enough time, we'll take more time. But just kind of install all of these, and then we'll continue on from there. And then as you're installing them, let's go to Beautify. I think I have that installed. Yep. If you click on the extension, it'll give you a good description of what each extension kind of does for you. So they're usually detailed. I don't actually know the details of all of them, but if you're curious, they'll give you some description of what you're installing for your VS Code. All right, we'll give it maybe another couple minutes, and if we need more time, definitely don't want to rush it. But yeah, LiveShare is very useful. Again, we're all working off of Zoom right now, so it is not always ideal to be talking about code without actually seeing it. So LiveShare actually lets you work off the same editor, even though everyone's in different places. We're going to do a quick demo of that, so hopefully it'll work. It is kind of finicky, sometimes doesn't always work, so hopefully we have good luck with it. Okay, let's give it another minute, and we'll see where everyone is with these extensions. Again, you guys can search the web. There's probably tons more useful extensions. You can add on whatever. These are just a few selections that we're familiar with, but again, there's many user-created extensions. So a lot of these are just created by coders that found something useful. Just going through this list. Again, it's pretty much an endless list here. I just searched for I guess, beautify and get all these extensions. Okay, how's the crowd doing? Do you guys still need another minute or two? All right, I will take that silence as a positive sign. It's kind of like command line. When the command line doesn't give you a response, I'm going to take that as a good note.
Absolutely.
So hopefully you guys got those all installed. Again, if you didn't, again, you guys can go back and install those. They don't take too much time. So we're going to proceed here. But all right, cool. So now we got our VS Code extensions. We got our settings kind of set up. Let's actually use VS Code. That's obviously the main point here. So the first thing I want to mention is that there's an integrated terminal. So the stuff that we did in my iTerm here, you can do the same exact things in your VS Code. So it's a weird shortcut, but if you hit Control tilde, so that's Control and sorry, I guess, yeah, tilde is the key beneath your escape key. So I'm going to hit that. It's going to bring up a terminal here. So hopefully you guys are able to bring that up. That's a shortcut for it. If you actually go to a terminal up here and just do new terminal, it'll do the same thing. So Control, which is the, I guess, upper caret, and then tilde brings up a terminal. So this brings up my current working directory. So again, I'm in my Oscar Lectures Sandbox folder. So that's my working directory over here. So now again, you can use the UI or you use the terminal. It's usually user preference. Sometimes one makes more sense than others. I like using the file explorer here. So to create a new file, I just hit this plus sign. Let's create a new JavaScript file. So let's say hello.js. So you do have to give an extension. Notice that my icon changed to JS, which is one of the extensions we installed. So I hit enter. All right, cool. I created a hello.js, and now I can edit this file. Again, I could totally do the same thing in my terminal. So I did touch, let's do donuts.js. That creates a donuts file. Again, same thing, two different ways to do the same exact thing, whatever you feel is best. Again, I like using the file explorer here. I create folders here. So let's create a new folder. I call this, I don't know, food, and maybe drop my donuts.js in there. Again, it's much easier to move stuff around, I think, here than doing it through here. But if I need a bulk move or bulk rename, I might do it through my terminal. But yeah, so create file, create folder, pretty straightforward. Hopefully everyone's familiar with the basic operations for the file explorer. Make this a little larger. You can undo stuff. So I think that's what this, that's a refresh, sorry. But you can undo stuff. I hit Command Z, that moves my donuts out of my food folder because that was my last operation, but I actually want it there. Okay, so that's, again, basic file explorer, create files, work with them in your workspace. All right, so I have this hello.js. Let's actually add some code in here. So let's just do a very simple.
I'm sorry, I have a quick question.
Absolutely.
For our, I guess for all of our code challenges, do you want us to make is there like a default directory you want us to make that we can access to it? Like, for instance, you have code Oscar Lecture Sandbox. Do you want us to do it like that?
So no, that's totally up to you. That's a fair question to ask. However, you can manage your files however you want on your local machine. We're going to be getting your code submissions through GitHub, and we'll go over that process. So don't worry if that seems totally foreign to you at this point. But I mean, I would recommend just having like a challenges folder like I had. So CD challenges. So yeah, I mean, I just create a code Oscar challenges. So like for my previous Platoon, we were in November, so I had a separate November one. Again, however you want to do it, we're not gonna care how you guys organize it, but hopefully you guys have some organization for all your files because you're gonna have a ton of coding challenges. But yeah, it's totally up to you.
Okay, sounds good.
So I did actually, let's see, I added a custom command, and I will actually have to come back to you guys and tell you guys how I did it. But I have a Control T command that gets back to my current file. So that's actually kind of useful. So if you guys are curious, I'll try to post that in our chat. But basically, what that allows me to do is, let's say I open a new file. So let's say I open my food.donuts file. If I want to quickly get to it, I have a shortcut that I've created, so you guys won't have access to this. So I guess I don't know why I'm showing it to you, but it is possible. I hit Control T, and it just gets me to wherever my current working file is. So donuts is in my lecture/sandbox/food folder. So it's just a quick way to get to where I need to get to. All right, so if I get to my hello.js, let's create a simple application. So I'm going to create a variable. Let's call it message equals hello Oscars. And then I'm going to print that to our terminal. So console.log. Hopefully you guys are familiar with console.log. And I'm just going to print my message. All right, so very simple program here. Let's actually add a comment. Comments are always nice. Create a variable and sign a value. All right, so that's a comment, and then print value out. So these words are used kind of interchangeably, terminal or console. I might use both. I usually use console just because it's console.log. But again, just be aware that those mean the same thing. All right, so I'm just gonna create a variable and then print that out to console. So if I actually want to run this, we run JavaScript through Node. So Node is our engine here. So I'm gonna type Node, and then I'm gonna, let's see, Node. Can anyone tell me what's gonna happen if I run this?
It's gonna error out because you're in the wrong folder. You need to be up one and just straight sandbox, I think.
Jack's got it. I will say this, based on last cohort, a lot of students run into this issue. Again, it's common, so don't feel bad, but you wanna make sure you're in the correct working directory. So sometimes when you have folders and you're not in the right folder, and you try to run a file, like I have hello.js here, I wanna run hello.js, I hit enter. Notice I got cannot find module. So now this error seems very scary. Like I actually, there's all this stuff, module not found. It's like I wrote this super simple program and got this weird error. So this is where, again, Googling or just being familiar with the error will get you through it. So again, sometimes error messages can be really, really ugly. And when I say ugly, just really like textually verbose. Don't get intimidated or afraid. That's just the way the compiler spits out the error message. Like it's not a human telling you the error, it's a machine telling you an error, right? Sometimes it's going to be like 40 lines of error code, but it's really just one, like it's going to be pointing you to one specific line of your code that caused that entire chain of errors. All right, so yeah, as Jack said, we're not in the correct directory, so we need to make sure we're in the correct directory. So I'm going to go back to my sandbox environment, because that's where my hello.js is located. And now if I want to get back to my command, does anyone remember how I could quickly get back to the command I just ran?
Press the up arrow key.
Okay, yep, I think I heard that, up arrow. So I did cd ... but I want to go one more, so I hit up arrow again. There we go, node hello.js. So let me run that. And notice I got this printed out to my console. Hello Oscar is what I intended, and that looks correct. So my program ran successfully, and I got the message I wanted. Let me clear my terminal. Again, clear will just give me more space in my terminal. So it's clear, so I get more space here. One thing I want to mention here, something that's maybe, I guess, new developers are kind of taken back by is the early programs we write are not going to be that visually exciting. They're all going to be in a terminal, so you just be seeing a bunch of text and like inputting text and outputting text. You may seem like, hey, this is kind of dumb. I'm not really doing much. But again, you are building up the blocks. So we're working on the logic portion of it. We'll get into the UI side of things, like creating web pages and just like front end facing elements. That's going to come. So just don't be kind of upset that we're just doing like what seems like kind of stupid or simple things. Like working with a terminal is what programming is initially. Like we're just working on the logic and creating all the backend materials, and we'll hook it up to a front end eventually. All right, so just hopefully you guys don't get bored with it. The real challenge here is working with the code, knowing how to structure your code, work with algorithms, using data structures, data types, functions, just the basics of coding. Make sure everyone's good with that. All right, so I created this file. Again, this is a JavaScript file. We run JavaScript using Node. You can also use your browser to run it, and that's where that's usually tied to like HTML files, and when you have, again, more front-end facing items, but Node is the way to run it through your terminal. Any questions on what we've done so far with VS Code?
Yeah, so I'm getting Node is not found. That would have to do with my installation from earlier, right? Okay, fine.
Yeah, you would need to use Homebrew to install Node. So if you didn't get that far, then yeah, you'd probably not have that possible right now. So again, apologies if everyone's not at the same installation phase, but we'll get you guys there hopefully by the end of the day. But okay, so we wrote our first JavaScript file. Again, we created it. we coded it up in our editor here, and then we ran it through our terminal. That's going to be the general flow of things for most of our challenges early on. All right, what else do we want to do here? Let's say we want to do some debugging. So I'm going to make my code a little more, I guess, to it. So I'm going to, let's say, print out values 1 through 10. Can anyone tell me how I can achieve printing out values 1 through 10? I guess in a more condensed way.
Perhaps the for loop.
Yep, I think I heard it. For loop. So we're going to do a for loop here. We'll start at 0. Actually, let's do 10 through 1, just to be a little more exciting. So we'll do 10, and then semicolon. Then in this case, we're going to be going downwards. So in this case, we need to check if I is greater or equal to 1. And then we're going to do I minus minus. So this is going to decrement I. So I is going to start at 10. We're going to decrease values each time, and then we'll stop once I is less than 1, I guess, basically. So we do greater than 0 also. So this is, as long as I is greater than 0, we'll continue this loop. So let's just do a console.log the value of I. All right, so we run this. Notice I got 10, 9, so forth. Kind of what we expected. We still got our hello Oscar from above. But let's say I want to like debug this. So this is where I love VS Code because you could actually set breakpoints. So breakpoints, when they get hit, will actually pause the execution of your code, and you can investigate values and do whatever else you might want to do to gain information. So let's say make this a little more. Let's add an if statement. Let's say if I. So if you guys are familiar with the % operator, this is the modulo. I'm going to check if it's an even value. So basically, this will check the remainder after you divide by 2. If that's equal to 0, this means it's going to be even value. Let's print out. Okay, I'm going to do some more complicated things there. Let me know if I lose you guys anywhere. Let's do. All right, so again, I'm doing doing an if statement inside my for loop. So in this case, this would be odd. All right, so a couple notes here. Notice that I did not use curly braces with my if statement. This is actually okay, so long as that you have one statement in your if and your else. All right, so let me actually just take the else out right now. So what I'm saying here is, since I only have one line here, my curly braces are optional. So I could do this. This doesn't change anything. But I will say it is always good to have these curly braces just to make it safer. The reason being, let's actually show this example. Let's do a console.log I like donuts, which is a true statement. I love donuts. So this, excuse me, this is basically going to print out I is even for every even number in my range, and then also print out I like donuts. Let me give this a quick run. Notice I got 10 is even, and then I like donuts, as I expect. 8 is even, I like donuts, right? Hopefully this output is not shocking to anybody. Let's say I leave off these curly braces. Now, what can be tricky is my formatting here is not what developers should be doing. Notice I have these both tabbed. You might think like, okay, I have this if statement, and then both these will execute inside the if statement. That's not what's going to happen. So if I actually run this, let's see what happens. Notice that I get a lot more I like donuts. Basically, every iteration is printing this out. The reason being is it's executing it like this. It's automatically putting curly braces around the very first line. So this is, in fact, what it's doing the way I had it written before. So again, only one statement will be nested under your if you leave off the curly braces. That's why it's always good practice to have curly braces. Sometimes I might leave them off, or you might want to leave them off just for, I guess, condensing your code. It's not wrong, but again, it's just safer to have these brackets so that if I want to add a new line here, I can just drop it in here and not worry about, hey, is this actually nested in my if state or not? All right, so that's why, again, if I leave them off, just don't be, hopefully it doesn't throw you off too much. I sometimes do just out of habit. Maybe I need to get better about my habits, but let's just do this. All right. and run this. All right, so we get what we want. 10 is even, 9 is odd. I would agree with these statements. All right, let's actually get some debugging going on here. So I'm gonna put a breakpoint here. So I guess I would call this the gutter of your file. You can hover your mouse and you'll see like a faint red dot. That is somewhere where you could add a breakpoint. So in this case, I added a breakpoint to line 13. So if I click it, it goes away. If I click back here, it's bright red. That means a breakpoint has been set. I'm gonna pause here, just make sure if anyone wants to be coding on or is trying to create something similar, give you a moment to catch up there. Basically, again, this breakpoint, this code will execute, and this will pause my execution, and I can basically investigate the values that I have in my code at that point. All right, so let's actually try that. So the one thing I want to mention, though, is you need to hook up your application to the VSCode debugger. So what I mean by that is if I go back to my terminal and hit node hello.js, notice that my application ran to completion and this breakpoint wasn't touched. The reason being is because VSCode is not hooked up to my execution in my terminal here. So to do that, we got to do a couple more steps here. So instead of using my terminal, I'm just going to, I guess I'll keep that around. I'm going to go to my main menu, and there's a run menu here. Hopefully everyone can find that. The run menu, there's an option to start debugging. So I'm going to select that. And that's going to give me an option. It's going to tell me where do I actually want to run this JavaScript. And you will see a few options. Notice I have a browser here. I can run this in Chrome. But in this case, there's no visual output here. So Chrome's not going to be as useful. I can still run it because your browsers have like a developer tool set, which lets you view the console. In this case, I'm going to select node.js. All right, so from the select environment, select node.js. And then it ran my code. But notice that this is my output. I got hello Oscar, I got 10 is even. But now, if you notice, I got this yellow line. This is where my code is currently paused. So I could kind of investigate values. Like let's say I want to investigate the value of I. Notice in my debug menu, excuse me, this is the fourth tab here. It automatically switched to it. Let me blow this up in case you guys can see it. Notice I have my variable of I and telling me the value of it. All right, so if I had like 20 different variables, they would all be listed here. And like if something were going wrong, I could say, okay, wait, I shouldn't be actually 9. It should be some other value, right? So this just gives you more information. There's also this object, which we can ignore. But yeah, so currently my value of I is 9. So I have this menu here, which gives me some control of how I want to proceed. This play pause button will let me continue. This will mean my code will go on until it hits another breakpoint, or if it doesn't hit another breakpoint, it'll just complete the execution of it. Then I have these options here. There's F10, which is step over, F11, which is step into, and we'll talk about the difference there. And then step out, also we'll talk about. Or if you just want to restart your application, you could restart, or if you want to just stop your debugging session, hit stop. So again, these are kind of familiar symbols. Hopefully they kind of make sense. Let's say I continue. So I'm just going to hit the continue button. Again, that's shortcut is F5. So notice it went again, and now my value of I is 7, and we're paused. So if I look at my output here, I got 10 is even, 9 is odd, 8 is even, and then I hit my breakpoint again because I'm in a for loop here. Does that kind of make sense to everybody? So I'm running this for loop, so this is going like this is cycling over and over. So this breakpoint got hit again when I got to my odd case, which is my else case. So maybe some comments here would be good. So one thing, I guess is a bad example, but if I add comments here, like this is the even case, it's actually going to throw off my debugger because I've updated my code. So it's not going to actually, let's see, this is the odd case. So if I continue, notice that it broke on line 13 because it's where my breakpoint was. Like it looks kind of weird. It broke on a comment, which it shouldn't do. The reason being is because I modified my file during my debug session. So VSCode is using my old values, not my new values. So you can't really modify it in place and have it execute, at least not with nodes. So if I stop and kind of redo this, so I go to run, start debug, select node.js. Now it breaks on line 15 because that's my new line of my breakpoint. All right, so I continue. Notice I got more output. Continue again. Sorry, I apologize if it was too small. Continue again. Notice I got to 4. But yeah, so let's say instead of continuing, I want to go line by line. That's where your step over comes into play. So if I actually do a step over, it's going to go to my for loop, and then I keep step and it goes to the next line. So now I can see that I'm hovering over the variable, so I is 2, and then I can see what's going to happen. So if I go step over, notice it goes into this part of the code. Even though I don't have a breakpoint here, I'm just going line by line at this point. So I got into my even case, so it's going to do console log where the I value is, so I is 2. So I would expect 2 is even to be printed out here. So if I do a step over, it should add to my output. So notice I got 2 is even because it executed this line. So I'm going line by line through my code. Again, this can be very useful when you're trying to identify like what's like a broken part of your code. It's good to see what each line of your code is doing. And then you can kind of hopefully catch your error that way. Okay, so I'm just going to continue here. This will get to my next breakpoint, which is here. Let's say I'm tired of my breakpoint. I could just remove it by clicking on it, and this will just remove it and continue on. All right, so notice one thing, when I go to the run menu, it always asks me like, hey, what environment do you want to go through? That's not really, I guess, user-friendly in terms of if I'm going to do this often, I don't want to keep selecting the environment. This is where your launch.json file will come into play. So to create one of those, you want to go to your debug menu. So that's your should be your fourth option on your left pane. It looks like a triangle with a little bug on it. You want to go here and then click create a launch.json file. Hopefully you guys all see this. So I'm going to go here. Now this is going to ask me what environment do I want to create a launch file for. So I'm going to select node.js, and it creates this launch file for me. It's, has some random values in it. I'm not going to modify it because it knows what it's doing. But basically, it's going to launch node, launch, and it's going to launch hello.js in my current workspace folder. All right, so I'm not going to modify anything here. If I go back to my file explorer, it actually created a .vscode folder with a launch.json file in it. Again, I don't want to touch it. It set up everything correctly. We can verify that. But now that this is created, when I go to my run menu and hit debug, it's not going to ask me for my environment. It's going to know based on this configuration that I have here. So I go to run. Notice it didn't ask me. And then, sorry, we got to be on the file going run, actually. So I go to run. All right, it ran my file. It didn't ask me what I wanted to run it in. So if I set a breakpoint here and go to run again, notice it stops my breakpoint. I can investigate the value of message. It's hello Oscar. Notice there's all these values here. If I'm good with it, I can continue. If I want to step through it, okay, I got my output. That looks good. I just want to continue on. All right, get the rest of my output here. All right, so you want to create a launch.json file. If you are going to run this multiple times, it just saves you having to specify what configuration you want to send under. Any questions about debugging or setting up a launch.json file? Definitely want to make sure you guys are comfortable with using VSCode. All right, I'm going to take that silence as everyone's happy and good with VSCode.
I think those of us who are behind are probably going to have to, when we catch up on everything else, watch the video again, just because I'm completely confused, but that's only because I, not been able to get up to this point yet because of the previous stuff.
All right, yeah, Jonas, I appreciate the insight. Was there anything in particular you're confused about, or just something you said you want to run it yourself and you'll have more familiarity with it?
Oh, no, I mean, just, just trying to debug what I can from the previous stuff. And this is just compounding on top of that. So, but I mean, it's okay. Hopefully by the end of the day, it'll all be resolved. So.
Okay, yeah, again, absolutely. I'm going to go over debugging in VS Code over multiple days, as in when we're going through code challenges, I'm going to be using it a lot just because I like debugging a lot, using VS Code to do it. There are command line options for debugging. I am not a fan of those just because I like the visual editor. But okay, so that is debugging in a nutshell in VS Code. Again, most of it is setting breakpoints and just investigating the values of your code at certain times in your execution. You can set more advanced breakpoints, actually. So if I go to line 15, so this is a normal breakpoint. Normal, it's just like a bright red circle. If I actually do a control click on it, I get some options. I get remove breakpoint, as in if I want to get rid of it and no longer use it. You can do disable, which means it's not going to be active. Or I can do edit breakpoint. This gives me more options. I could actually do this. I can set an expression. So let's say I don't want this to hit on every odd case, but I want it to hit when I equals 3, let's say. So I could do I equal 3 as my expression and set that. Notice, so I don't know if, again, I don't know what your screen displays, but now my red circle kind of has 2 dashes in it. So it looks like a pause sign within my breakpoint. So now I have this condition that I set, sorry. Control click on it. So again, my expression is I equals 3. So this should not hit when I equals 9 or 7 or 5, even though this is my odd case. It's going to only hit on one special case. So to
That's
verify
really
that,
useful.
sorry, was there a question there?
That's really useful.
Yep. Again, yeah. So again, we're writing really simple applications here, but once your applications do a lot more things, it's good to have conditional breakpoints when you don't want to keep hitting the same point over and over, but you're looking for a very specific condition within your code. So if I, let this run, how do we get rid of this? Enter. All right, let's do my start debug. Debug console. All right. So in my debug console, I got 10, 9, 8. I got to 4. So notice it skipped over 9, 7, and 5, even though I had a breakpoint on this line. The reason being is because I had an expression or a condition that I was looking for, and in this case, it was I equals 3. So once that condition was found, it actually uses that breakpoint, and now I can say, okay, yep, I equals 3, because I hovered over it. I'd see the value of I, which is 3. And now if I want to do anything more, more debugging or investigation here, I could. But in this case, I don't really need to care about more, so I'll just continue, and my application completes. All right, so that's a conditional breakpoint, just a little more advanced. You can also do a hit count, as in, I should say, I've tried this before. It can be a little buggy in VS Code, so VS Code isn't perfect. But if you do control click, edit, and do a hit count, this will actually break a certain number of times that this is hit. So let's say, this gets hit 4 times and I want it to stop, then I could set a value of 4 here. So if I do 4, it should do 9, 7, 5. I guess hit on 3 again. Let's verify that. Hit count equals 4. Let's run this one more time. Okay, that actually didn't do it, so I will ignore that. So I thought this would break when this gets hit the 4th time, but yeah, not sure. So again, I've had some issues with these breakpoints before. I might need to figure out why this is not hitting. But.
It looks like that's just to log the number of times that line is run.
Is that right? It might be.
Or unless it starts, if it starts at 0.
Yeah.
Let's, yeah, so I should change my hit count to 2. I don't know. Again, I've had issues with it before, so maybe some misunderstanding on my part. Let's try running this again. All right, so hit count, apparently I don't know exactly what it does. I thought it should be triggering it. You can log message here. Yep, okay, we'll just move on with this. All right, so those are breakpoints. Again, debugging, we'll do a lot more of it, so hopefully you guys get comfortable with it, but definitely a good skill for any software developer to have. So I'm gonna say no software developer out there writes 100% correct code 100% of the time. Like if you do, I'm gonna challenge that no matter what. Because no matter how seasoned of a software developer you are, the larger your code gets, you're going to have just bugs that creep in there, whether it be syntax errors or even just logical errors that you won't catch the first time. That's where, again, having debugging skills is a lifesaver. So that's something that you guys are going to have to refine. If you guys aren't familiar with debugging, it's something you guys can get better at and better at. Yeah, just be aware that debugging is a very useful skill and something that you guys should be focusing on. So instead of just saying, hey, my applications work, how do I fix it? Being able to go through your code and fix it yourself. Again, that's just a skill that any employer is going to look for. Yeah. So, okay, that goes over debugging. Let's go over, let's see. Yeah, actually, let's take a quick break. I think we'll be going for close to an hour. So let's take another 8-minute break if you guys are cool with that. Let's be back at 2:50 Central Time, and we'll wrap up, I think, VS Code, and then we'll get you guys to the afternoon challenges.
So my challenge is.
Thank you, Zoom. All right, so I want to share my screen one last time. Share here. All right, so we're gonna go over one more feature of VS Code. So one of the extensions that we installed was Live Share. So this is something that's, again, very useful, especially since we're all kind of working remotely, to collaborate and work together on code. So I'm actually going to have one of our TAs. Rena, are you out there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Gotcha. Okay, so I'm actually going to send Rena an invite so that she can work off the same code that I'm working on. So Obviously, the less high-tech way to do it would be I could copy my code, paste it in Slack and send it to Rena, and then she could work off of it. And then if she makes a change, she could copy it back and send it to me. Like that can work, but it's not really, dynamic. She could also use GitHub and upload code, and I could, pull it down, work that way. But again, it's still kind of slow because we're kind of just like having those delays of where she makes an update, I make an update. We got to make sure we're working on the same code. But LiveShare actually lets us kind of work together on the same piece of code. So let's actually try that out. Hopefully mine works. So LiveShare, there's a new icon should have been added to your VS Code once you install LiveShare. It looks like an arrow with jumping over a dot. I'm gonna go over there. In this case, I want to share. So if I wanted to join a session, I think Rena actually sent me an invite, but I'm actually going to send her one. So I'm going to go to share, and then it's going to ask me to sign in. So let's sign in with my GitHub. Sure, allow it. All right, so when I click that, it actually open a browser. You guys can't see it as off screen. It's going to ask me authorize VS Code access GitHub. Sure, have all of my information. It's going to do its thing. It's thinking. Sure, not sure why it's asking me again. All right, open Visual Studio Code.app. Yep, let's just select always do that. All right, a lot of prompts to go through, but eventually, once you log in and give it permissions, let's see. Okay, so now I got an invite invitation link that's copied to my clipboard ready. I'm going to send it to Rena over Slack. Sorry. So I'm going to find Rena on Slack. All right, Rena, I'm sending you a LiveShare code. So if you guys want a quick peek, I just sent her. This was copied already to my clipboard. I sent it to Rena. She'll get this prompt. She's going to click it, and then we'll see what happens.
Okay, so I entered it into the join box. Joining collaboration session, ...
So notice I see Rena's name popped up here. I think the red means she's still connecting. It is kind of slow, so even being in 2021, the technology isn't the greatest. It can take a little bit of time to connect. I think Rena, let me know if you get connected and see my code.
Okay.
Yeah, it takes a little bit of time for my workspace to get to her screen, but eventually she should be able to see everything I have here. And then she should see my food folder with donuts in it, my hello folder. There's a way to configure terminal. So Rena, let me know if you do not see my terminal once it loads. I might need to set something else up, but hopefully it's working.
Is there a limit on the number of participants that this can have?
I'm not sure what the upper limit is. I know multiple people can do it, like 3 or 4 people. I'm not sure if there's a cap. It's a good question. I don't know.
The splash window for LiveShare said 30. Okay.
There you go. I think 30 would be really chaotic, but I guess if you wanted to push the limit, we could have our entire class working on one document. But is it still loading for you, Rena?
So I have a message that says the target participant is not currently editing a shared document.
Okay, I might have screwed something up there. Let's try that again. So right. Chat with Rena. I want to invite. I'm gonna end my session. I'm gonna try this again. So again, it doesn't always work. Let's go to share. Let's start a new session. All right, so it shows Rena online. I see that check mark. Okay, I'm going to send you another link, Rena. Hopefully it works second time. Fingers crossed here. So I see that she's online. That's a good sign. So we've seen that before.
Yeah, okay, I can see the folders now.
Oh, cool. Okay, so that worked much quicker at the same time. So notice on my screen here, there's a little purple cursor. Again, the color's a little dark. So that's actually Rena's cursor. So that she's typing on my screen. I am not typing. My hands are up in the air. So Rena typed in hello. So yeah, if she wanted to add to my code, she could add to it. Like if she wanted to help me debug, we could do a debugging session together. But this is all Rena. Again, no tricks going on here. But yeah, so Rena's editing my code. Again, as we kind of mentioned, you know, multiple people, so you have 3, 4, I guess up to 30 people. Again, I'm not sure how you coordinate if 30 people are trying to access the same line, but again, it's possible. So I could add code here, and Rena can also add code. So I'm going to comment like, this is Conker's comments, and then as you can see, Rena is adding a console.log. All right, cool. So we collaborated. I'm going to give this a run. So let's do hello.js. All right, notice we got our output. We got a hi coming out every time because Rena added a hi for every iteration of this loop. So there we go. We collaborated. Again, pretty nifty tool, especially since we're working remote. Always get to work out the same code rather than saying, okay, line 18, we make this change, make it on your end. Like it's not as easy to kind of just sync up code when you're not looking at the same screen. So again, this is going to be very useful. So we've talked about we're going to do pair programming often. Some of you guys might not like it. Some of you guys might love it. We are going to, encourage you to, not even encourage you, we're going to mandate that you guys do it every Tuesday and Thursday. You're going to be paired up with a different member from the cohort. This is a great way just getting experience with pair programming. B, just kind of get to know each other more personally. Obviously, we got a moderate sized cohort. Part of this experience of going through Platoon is having, making some bonds. Again, you might make a great friend out of the cohort, make some good bonds that last beyond the cohort. Maybe not. Again, there's no guarantees there. But you guys are all kind of going through the program together. You guys all have a similar background. So, use the time for where we have pair programming assignments to, make some personal connections, kind of get to know one another, and also kind of obviously learn from one another. Like, for example, Rena might be an expert in writing for loops, and I might be an expert in writing if statements. Together, like we could work together, and I could help Rena get better with if statements, and she could help me get better with for loops. Again, that knowledge transfer is going to make both of you guys better coders. I will say sometimes you might be paired with someone that's, quote unquote, like a lower skill level than you are at that point. That's still a great opportunity for you to kind of take what you know. And if you're able to teach someone else, that just makes it that much more, I guess, solid from your perspective that you have that material down. And then again, if you're working with a more experienced partner, take that opportunity to ask questions. Again, hopefully everyone knows this is a safe space. So hopefully no one should get annoyed by someone asking like, questions that might seem trivial or annoying. Like, again, we're all at different levels, have different coding experiences, but our end goal is the same, to learn the material and help each other out. So hopefully everyone's on board with that perspective. Rena, thanks so much for being my live share partner there. Likewise, she could send me an invite. Like if I wanted to join a session, I could go to the join button, that left button, join. And then if she send me a link, I could put it into here and I'll be able to join her session. Okay, so hopefully you guys can try that out tomorrow when we do pair programming. Let's talk more about pair programming. That's the last topic I think I want to cover. Pair programming, it is definitely not something that we're all used to. Again, I'm a coder. I think all of you guys, want to be coders. It's always, fun to be the one coding. It's not always fun to be reading someone else's code. But that's part of the job. Like when you get to a new software role, you're probably going to experience some form of pair programming, whether reading someone else's code that has been developed or actually actively pair programming with someone. So you get comfortable with not always being in the driver's seat. So when we talk about pair programming, we use kind of like an analogy of being a driver versus being a navigator. So let's say we're taking a road trip. So let's say Rena and I are taking a road trip somewhere and I'm driving the car. So when I say driving, that means I'm actually writing the code and trying to, get us to where we need to get to. So we have our end goal of whatever our task might be. Rena's job as the navigator, she would be kind of paying attention to what I'm writing, as in each line of code that I write. She would mentally be checking it and also verbally asking questions. So like, let's say I write a for loop here. She might, if she's either confused by it or just want to verify that we're on the same page, she might ask like, hey, why are you decrementing from 10 to 0 instead of incrementing, right? That might be a valid concern of what we're trying to accomplish. Like, let's say our actual goal is to count up from 1 to 10, and I write a for loop like that. Or Rena's want to question that, like, hey, actually, why are you decrementing? Why aren't you going upwards instead of downwards, right? Or sorry, why are you going downwards instead of upwards? So the navigator, again, their job is to pay attention to what the driver is doing, ask questions, and make sure that that we're getting to the right path. What else do I want to say about that? So when you're pair programming, definitely take turns. You don't want to be the one driving for 3 hours straight and have someone else just viewing your code. That's not fun for, I guess, especially for your navigator. So make sure you're switching off tasks when you can. Like when you're pair programming, usually for, again, the first few weeks, you're gonna have multiple challenges. So, you know, one person can drive one challenge, and then when you guys complete that, take a break, swap roles, and then someone else can be the navigator, someone else can be the driver. Does that make sense to everybody? Any general questions on pair programming? Again, it's something you guys will get comfortable with. It is not necessarily the most fun because, again, we always want to be coding, but that knowledge transfer and just working together with someone else, that is something that we all want you to gain experience on. So that's why we have pair programming usually twice a week. Thoughts, any questions, comments, concern there?
No, I just have to go back and do the whole Cloud9 thing, just because I was paying attention to you. So.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay. So just to kind of go over that analogy one more time. So we have the driver. The driver should also be verbalizing what they're doing. So as I'm coding on screen, I should be vocalizing to my pair programming partner or partners that, hey, I'm writing this for loop because I want to count down from 10 to 0, 10 to 1, right? And then the navigator would either confirm that, and they would say, hey, yep, that makes sense. That's what we need to do. Or again, they might question it like, hey, actually, we need to increment upwards. Maybe your for loop should go from 0 to 10 instead of 10 to 0. Also, the driver should voice expectations. So imagine, again, we're taking a road trip and we're driving on the highway, and I'm gonna vocalize what my mindset is going towards, as in I'm gonna be like, okay, I think we're gonna take exit 17 off this highway. Again, the navigator should either confirm or deny that and saying, hey, yep, that makes sense. We need to take exit 17 to get to our next destination. Or the navigator might be like, actually, we need to take exit 15 because we're trying to, you know, get to here. So again, that road trip analogy kind of just makes it kind of easy for me to understand how pair programming assignments should go. Also, like, yeah, so as the driver, I want to actually make sure I know where I'm going. So I would ask the navigator, okay, you know, we're writing this block of code, we're writing this function. What's the next task we need to do? So I'm aware of like how the code's going to flow. So I'm ready for what's coming next rather than kind of like being surprised by the next task. But yeah, so the navigator should guide development, confirm and reject assumptions or I guess tasks that the driver's doing, and then should generally guide the development. So the navigator should be, you know, kind of vocalizing, hey, okay, we're writing this function. Next thing we need to do is write a function that could read a text file or whatever it may be. Obviously, that's a bad example. The navigator should also be kind of mindful of, excuse me, you know, grab some water, considering alternatives. So like, you know, there's usually with coding, there's many ways to achieve the same solution. So as a navigator, you might want to be keeping an eye on what your driver is doing and suggest better alternatives. For example, if I'm writing a for loop, but maybe this is better situated as a while loop, you know, a navigator would be like, okay, you know, what if we wrote that as a while loop? What are the benefits? What are the trade-offs? Again, have a discussion, make sure communication between whoever's writing the code and whoever's kind of making sure that the tasks are being completed correctly. Communication is key. You guys will get better at it. Again, not maybe the most fun activity to do, but pair programming and the skill that you need to develop just to get more experience with it. So hopefully you guys get good experience out of it. Again, the main benefit, I would say, just to have some personal connection with someone else in your cohort, just have that one-on-one connection, you know, share some personal stories, talk about what you're dealing with in the cohort, whether challenges or stuff that you want to get better at, and hopefully you guys can help each other out. You know, hypothetically, you might be matched with someone that you don't click with. That's okay. That's kind of a, you know, that might happen in the real world where you start a new job, you get paired on a team or put on a team or paired with someone. Maybe you won't gel, but professionally, you still have the same tasks. You need to work together. So, you know, just understand that although they might have, you know, different ideas than you or just whatever reason they bother you, just kind of understand putting those personal differences aside and focus on the task at hand and completing it. And again, yeah, you're not going to be tied with your coding partner forever. You're not hopefully have a new partner every time you pair program with a smaller class size. You might have some duplicates, but other than that, you're going to have a new person pretty much each week. Okay, that was my spiel on pair programming. So again, Tuesdays and Thursdays in the afternoon, we'll be having pair programming assignments. This is another reason, as Tom mentioned, if you are going to be out, whether for an appointment, you know, either for an hour or for the entire afternoon or even mornings, just make sure you're communicating with us so we know, like, hey, if you know, John's going to be out in the afternoon, we will know not to pair him with someone else so that no one's left kind of stranded. So we might just make a pair of 3. I guess that's not a pair, but a group of 3 at that point. But please communicate if you're going to be out either early or just for an hour or whatever it may be. Let us know. All right, that takes care of pair programming and live share. Definitely use it. It will make your lives easier, especially since we're all remote at this point. Last thing I want to go over before we complete our lecture and then get to the afternoon coding session, let's talk about GitHub. So I'm going to navigate to my GitHub, Oscar Platoon. Again, hopefully all of you guys have access to this. If not, please come find us so we could help you get situated. But we have the curriculum. There's two ways, I guess, to go about finding your challenges. You go to the current week, which is week 1, today's date, 5/24. Always at the bottom of the page, we have a section for assignments. There you'll find all the assignments that we have listed. Sometimes it might be 1, sometimes it might be 6. Again, it just varies based on the day. Early on, like the first 3 weeks or so, expect a lot of challenges, but those challenges will be really short. As we progress through the curriculum, the projects will get longer, but less numerous. Obviously, kind of a fair trade-off there. But yeah, so the first week, we're mostly focused on algorithms and kind of learning the basis of Python and JavaScript and getting comfortable with those languages and kind of getting familiar with how to solve some basic coding challenges. All right, so I'm going to go through the process of what all you guys will be doing for each of these challenges. This is something that you're going to do repeatedly, so eventually you guys will be pros at it, but just go over the process kind of in fine detail. So I'm on the curriculum page. This is May 24th. I can also go to the base curriculum and go down to assignments.md. This is a list of all of our assignments for every single day. This can be useful for, like, you know, if we're in week 5 and you're like, what did we do in week 1? Like, there's a challenge I want to look at. You know, this just has a list of every challenge from every day. So that can be useful also. But I want to go to 99 bottles. That's one of the assignments for Monday, May 24th, which is today. So I'm going to click on it. It should take me to the challenge. So this is Oscar Platoon 99 bottles. There'll be a README file for all this, which just gives you an introduction of what the challenge is asking for. Maybe just give you some, you know, some things to think about, and maybe some extended challenges if you want with the coding challenge. But the way we go about this, so there's a few steps here, so you guys can write it down or just mentally keep it in mind. Eventually, again, it'll be second nature. The first thing you want to do, many students, not many, but some students, or at least one of you guys, I think will make this mistake at some point. Just don't feel bad. I've definitely done it. If you want to fork, if you do not fork and just download the code directly, it'll work, but it won't let you commit back to this location because we've prevented write access for you guys because we don't want you guys messing with our core files. So you want to fork. What forking does is eventually creating a copy of this challenge. So I'm going to go to my personal GitHub, which is encore-cp. I'm going to click that. It's going to do its thing. It's going to fork. Maybe it takes like 2 or 3 seconds. It's forking. It's working. Maybe it takes 4 or 5 seconds. All right, there we go. So notice that now I'm in my personal GitHub here. Encore-cp 99 bottles. So this is my own personal GitHub. I could read and write to this location. So this is forked. If you notice the small text here, apologies if that's too small, but it's forked from Oscar Platoon 99 bottles. So I've made a copy of this. Now I can proceed to actually use this repository. So I'm going to go to this code button, drop down, and it has this file path on GitHub. I can click this clipboard icon or just copy this manually. I'm going to click the clipboard because it's easier. I click it, so that says copied. So now this has been copied to my clipboard. So this path is stored in my local clipboard. All right, so that's one task done. Now I'm going to go to my VS Code. I'm actually going to close this one because I don't want to work on this directory. Let me go to my terminal. Let's go to my challenges folder. So let's find that. I'm going to do CD again, CD, I think challenges, yep. All right, so in my code/Oscar/challenges, again, this is my local directory. You guys can store it wherever you guys want on your machines. Here, I'm going to write a git command. So I'm going to do git, I'm going to do clone. So clone is basically going to copy down the files from whatever repository I want it from. So do git space clone, and then I'm going to paste in. That's not what I wanted. I don't know why that copied that. Let me copy this again. So I want the URL from my GitHub. So I do a git clone space, and then I pasted. So it pasted my GitHub here. So let me extend this out. So that was HTTP github.com encore, whatever. This is the path from GitHub. So I do a git clone that file path. If I want to, I could create. I could add a folder name here. So I could do like whatever 99B if I wanted to call it 99B instead of 99 bottles. But if you leave off that folder name, it's going to use the default of this path. So if I hit enter here, it's going to do some things. That was pretty quick. So if I do an ls now, notice I have my 99 bottles here in addition to those 2 folders I created before. I actually don't want those, so I'm going to do remove -r hello. One thing we didn't go over is you can use wildcards here. So I could do a hello star. So anything that has a name of hello underscore and whatever, it's going to remove that. So if I did that, do an else, notice that both those folders got removed. So I used the wildcard character. So that's part of regular expressions, I guess. Removed anything with the hello underscore. All right, so I have my 99 bottles here. I'm going to get into that folder. So let me cd 99. I'm going to do a tab because I only have one folder by 99. All right, I'm in that folder. One thing I want to point out is notice that this says master in it. That is the name of my Git branch. And this is coming from the configuration for my command line prompt. Since I have a Git branch here, it's actually displaying which branch I'm on. So that's something I configured. If you guys configure that, you should be able to see what branch you're on whenever you're in a Git folder. All right, so I'm in my 99 bottles. I want to open a VSCode here. So I'm going to do code in the current directory. Again, that's what that period means. Hit enter. All right, it should bring up a VSCode like such. Then we usually have some files in there. So we have a README. This will detail what we're asking for the challenge. Sometimes we'll have files that have code in them. In this case, we have, this is placeholder stuff, so nothing functional, but we have a function and just an empty function here. So we want you to add code here. So let's say I want to make a change. So let me just add, let's do a console.log. This is my solution. All right, so this isn't actually what the solution is asking for, but I made a change here. Let's say I'm satisfied with this change and I want to commit it. I'm going to go back to my terminal. So again, the shortcut for that is Control-tilde. And again, I apologize, I'm going kind of fast. Tom's going to go over Git and GitHub tomorrow also. So I'm just introducing this so you guys can get to your challenges today. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask in the chat. But okay, so the steps I did was I forked the repo. Just review. There we go. I forked the repo from Oscar Platoon to my personal GitHub. I copied down the URL from the code dropdown. I did a git clone. I guess I lost that up here. I did a git clone from that path, and it copied that down to my local machine. Then I opened a VS Code. Again, a lot of steps here, so good to note it down. Open up a VS Code, added my solution, and now I'm ready to commit. So to commit, there's a few more steps. In your command line, you want to type in git add, and you can do a period. It's going to add all your changes. So I'm going to just do that for ease. So that added my changes to like a staging area. Again, Git, there's some complexities to it. Just kind of take my word for it. There's a staging area. So on my local machine, it stages my changes. I'm going to add a commit message. So commits. Add's going to add all the files to be committed. Commits is going to actually add it to my staging area. The -m is message. So let's add a message. So I completed my JS challenge before. All right, so you usually want to put a descriptive message here just so you can track your changes. Again, sometimes you're going to have multiple commits to the same project. So having descriptive comments is very beneficial. So I'm going to commit that. So it just put out some stuff. I don't really care about that. All right, so I added all my files that I changed. I committed them to my local staging area. The last step I need to do is push it from my local machine up back to my GitHub. So to do that, I'm going to do git push origin. All right, I'm going to hit enter. Apparently it needs my credentials, which I'm actually surprised by. All right, this just threw me for a loop. Okay, apparently I need my local password there. Apologies, you guys shouldn't see that pop up, but I did git push origin, basically committed all my changes to my GitHub. So if I go back to my GitHub now, if I refresh, notice my timestamp on my JS file is 1 minute ago. So that's approximately when I committed it. My Python file hasn't changed. So it's that last commit is 3 years. That's probably when this challenge was created. But my commit here, if I want to take a look at it, I just click on my file. And notice that this is the code I added. Let me blow that up a little bit. So console log, this is my solution. Yep, that looks like what I added. Another way to see the changes, I can click on the history of this. I'm going to show all the history. So since this challenge was created, if I click on my change, it'll show what I removed. So I removed, the comment that said write your code here. I added a line. So again, this is a good way to verify that the changes you intended are actually what got committed. All right, so let's say this is actually my solution. I'm satisfied with it. Now I want to send it back to the instructors so that the instructors can look it over or just verify that, that I'm completing challenges. So I'm going to go to pull requests. So there's a tab up here. I'm going to click pull request. Click new or click the new pull request button. Here, just kind of look over what changes I'm submitting. All right, that looks good. I'm going to click create pull requests. Again, a lot of steps here, I know. And then in my title, I want to put my name. So I'm going to put I can just put my first name. Hopefully we don't have too many duplicate names here. So Anchor Solution for 99 bottles, whatever. So the reason we asked you to put your name here is because we're going to see a bunch of pull requests from all of you guys. It's just easier for us to look at the title and figure out whose it is. We can look at your username. Sometimes your username is a little more obtuse. So yeah, just please add your name and then whatever challenge you worked on. So, all right, you put a comment here. This is optional, so don't worry about it. But I could say this was a difficult challenge. Whatever. Again, comments are optional, but title, please put your name and the challenge you worked on. I'm going to do create pull request here. It's going to do its thing. Check some stuff. All right, cool. And then if I go back to Oscar Platoon, I guess I was already there, 99 bottles. When I go to the pull request tab, notice I could see, okay, Anchor submitted a solution. So now if I want to take a look at it, I can go dig deeper into it and check it out for myself. So when you guys are submitting, I should instructors telling myself we'll see all your guys' solutions here so that we could verify it. We could just see that you guys are making an attempt or whatever else we want to do with it. So always submit a pull request once you complete a solution. Even if you get kind of halfway through a solution, you can still submit a pull request so we can take a look at it. If we want to discuss it with you, we could look it over and be like, okay, you kind of got stuck writing a function. We could if you need help with it, you could reach out to us like, hey, I didn't complete the 99 bottles challenge. Can we discuss it? And just having that code in front of us, we could have a better sense of what resources you need for that. Okay, that was a mouthful. That was probably like a dozen steps there to get the challenge, clone it down, update it, push it back up. Any questions on anything I did? Again, we're going to get a lot of practice with this. Tom's going to go over it tomorrow, talk more about GitHub and Git. So if you guys are confused by that, sorry, Zoom's being weird on my end. If you guys
Why is it Git push origin and not just Git push?
Good question. So if I go to my, all right, back in my terminal, if I do git remote -v, each of your destinations have a name. So by default, origin is the default name here. If I did a git push, let's see what happens. All right, so I think git push actually, I might be wrong on this. Yeah, so git push might work if you only have one destination. Sometimes you might have multiple destinations. So I always just specify it so I know where I'm committing to in case I have like multiple paths set up here. Like I might have 2 different GitHubs I'm pointing to. That is a typical use case. So yeah, I always just put git push origin because I want to know what repository I'm committing to, but it looks like git push should work also. So I guess, yeah, fair point there, Sarah. Thanks for mentioning that. Any other questions? Keep them coming. All right, we'll take that silence as a good sign. I will post a quick document on the steps I went through to get a challenge, clone it down, commit changes, just in case, because obviously you guys probably don't have it memorized at this point. Good to have that resource somewhere. So I'll post that in our Oxford channel shortly. But I think that wraps up our lecture here today. Any remaining questions on, let's say, command line, VS Code, or accessing and completing your challenges?
Sarah was talking, but she was muted.
Oh, okay.
I was just singing to myself. Don't mind me.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, good looking out for each other, but always good to sing along if you have some music going on. Okay. Any remaining questions? Otherwise,
I had a question.
Yep.
Just about the daily challenges. So obviously they're daily, and so we should be. I would assume that means we complete them every day. Is there a specific time we need to have them in, or have them pushed up, or anything? Like, how does that work?
Gotcha. I'm glad you asked that question, James. So I'm going to give you an honest answer, but also I don't want you guys to just take that and be like, okay, no sweat. So there are a lot of challenges, especially, again, the first couple of weeks, we throw a ton of challenges at you. There's probably like, again, average of like 5 per day. We expect all you guys to make an attempt at all the challenges, but again, some of you guys might like blow through them and take like half an hour and finish like, 2 in a half hour, or whatever the time span you want to put in there. Some of you guys might struggle. That's totally fine. Again, you guys are starting at different levels. So if you find yourself like just working on, one challenge and you work 3 hours on it, and then, you're kind of beat and you want to take a break and maybe attempt another challenge later, that's really fine. If you don't get through all 5 challenges for the night, that's okay. Again, the main goal is to learn. It's not to complete all challenges. So with that said, I don't want you guys to take the message saying, okay, great, we don't have to complete all challenges, so I'm not going to attempt all challenges. That's not what I'm saying. Based on how quickly you work, if you get through all challenges, great. If you get stuck and kind of struggle, that's fine too. Don't force yourself to stay up till like 3 a.m. completing challenges. To answer James' question more directly, we want you to complete them because normally we're going to go over one of the challenges the following day, just as a class together, so everyone's on the same speed. Again, it's always good to see how other people solve challenges. So like, James, you might complete a challenge, but then Tom goes through a challenge tomorrow, might do it a little differently. It's just good to see alternative ways to solve the same thing. As I mentioned, with coding, there's usually multiple ways to achieve the same solution. Some ways are better than others. Some are equally as good. There's different ways to do it. So we will generally be going over a challenge every morning to start, so that people just can ask questions and kind of just see how solutions are done. Yeah, so try to have all challenges completed by the next day, but realistically, you guys might not complete all challenges, or it might get stuck, or again, personal things might happen. Like you guys have families, you guys have lives. So if you guys have a busy night, personal night, don't sweat it. At least try to complete it during the afternoon, because we usually allocate around 4 hours during the afternoon for you guys to do challenges. So you guys definitely should have time to do it during the afternoon, but you may not complete them. So again, that was a long answer. James, I'm glad you asked that question. Don't feel pressured to stay up to 3 a.m. to complete challenges. We want you guys to be, not stressed. We want you to just learn. So don't put too much pressure on yourself to complete all challenges. But the more challenges you do, the better you're going to do. Like that's kind of obvious to say. So it's up to you guys. If you want to just say, hey, I'm going to do 1 challenge a night and call it a day, okay. I mean, we might ping you on that and say, hey, we don't see you attempting enough challenges, or it's your own doing, I guess. Like if you're going to struggle later on in the program, we're going to be like, well, you didn't attempt many challenges, so that's your doing there. Okay. Any other questions?
So what about us who haven't finished installing those programs? How are we gonna? We don't have our GitHub link to the VSCode. So how is that gonna work for us?
Sorry, I missed part of that question. What was your?
So for me, I haven't linked my GitHub to the VSCode.
Yep.
So
yeah.
How am I gonna do the part where you say we have to like?
Yep. Okay. So yeah, I guess there's gonna be 2 buckets of students going forward for this afternoon. For those of you guys that have installed everything correctly, I would say that you guys should be working on challenges. For those that are still getting through the installation processes, again, we're gonna dedicate the next hour and a half, or how long it takes into the evening, to get you guys set up. So again, it might be a slow process. Hopefully there's not too many of you guys struggling with installations, but Musa, you said you don't have your GitHub set up connected to your local machine. So we'll get you set up there. So yeah, don't worry about getting to the challenges if you're still trying to get the installations set up. Great. Thanks for that question.
These videos and other subsequent videos, are they gonna be posted on the GitHub channel if we need to watch them for review and stuff, or?
Yep, they'll be on our YouTube. So we have Platoon has a YouTube, and we'll have a playlist for each week, which we'll be adding to. Great question again. I'm missing all these things, so yeah, I'm glad you guys are asking. We'll be uploading videos. Uploading does take some time. Zoom takes a certain amount of time to process the video, and then uploading to YouTube also takes some time. So it's not gonna be instantaneous, but usually we'll complete our lectures on normal days in the morning. We'll upload them over lunch, and they should be available by the afternoon most of the days, depending on how the schedule goes. And yeah, we'll try to link those early on, but you should be able to find the Platoon YouTube channel pretty easily and find videos there. All right, with that, I'm going to stop the recording.